Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you're fine wherever you are. I'm also okay. I want us to look at one Oburu Odinga, the brother to the late Raila Odinga, who has taken over the reins at ODM, currently the interim party leader. In this particular episode, I will be making a case that Oburu Odinga actually is fit to lead ODM, and that somehow I am persuaded might end up being even a better leader. And better in this case will be very subjective. But ladies and gentlemen, before I continue, let me begin with a disclaimer. I am not a member of ODM. I have not been a member of ODM. So whatever I will be saying here are the views of an outsider, somebody who is observing things from outside. In that case, I'll be very glad to hear the views of ODM insiders concerning my views in this video. Ladies and gentlemen, I said that I want to make a case that Honorable, the current Senator for Siaya, Oburu Odinga, is a very good selection to be the party leader of ODM. Before I go into why, it's only fair that at least I give you the history of Oburu Odinga. I hope you won't get bored. I'll be concise. Oburu Odinga is currently 82 years old. In fact, going by his own admission, he was 1.5 years older than Raila Odinga the late, having been born in the year 1943, and of course Raila being born in 1945. So it is roughly an age gap of 2 years. Oburu Odinga is not a young person. He is in his 80s. What about Oburu Odinga's education? The man is called Dr. Oburu Odinga, and it is not honorary. He is not somebody who has been given an honorary degree by one of the universities that loved what he did. No. Oburu Odinga studied in Russia from a secondary to his degrees. Oburu Odinga was in Russia mostly. So there he graduated finally with a PhD in economics. So as far as education goes, ladies and gentlemen, Oburu is among some of the most educated Kenyans. What about his employment record? And there is a reason as to why I'm giving you these particular details about him, because in one way or the other, they will form part of my case for Oburu Odinga. What about his employment record? Oburu Odinga, even though his family was at loggerheads with the government of Moi, Oburu Odinga was a civil servant. He was working as an economist in the Ministry of Planning and National Development. And he worked there between 1981 up to 1994, when he returned to politics to take over the leadership of Bondo from his just departed father, Jaramogi Oginga Odinga. So, in terms of public service, Oburu Odinga, even before he joined politics, he had served for a decade or more. Then, during the Grand Coalition government, Oburu Odinga was appointed an assistant minister, of course, in the Ministry of Finance, where he served between 2008 and 2013. Ladies and gentlemen, that is his record. To put it in another way, Oburu Odinga is a practicing economist. Let us now jump to his political history or political journey. Oburu Odinga was first elected as a councillor to the Kisumu municipality in 1974. So that is the first time we have a record of him being engaged in politics. But like I said, he didn't last long in politics. He went to become a public servant. But then, with the death of his father, Oburu Odinga plunged himself back into politics and has never left politics since then. Meaning, since 1994 to date, Oburu Odinga has been active in politics. He won the Bondo parliamentary seat and led them for close to 20 years. That is between 1994 to 2013. Those are a lot of years, ladies and gentlemen. He led the Bondo constituency that long, until, of course, he was defeated by one Gideon Ochanda, who took over from 2013 and even as we speak is still the MP for Bondo. After losing to Gideon Ochanda in 2013, Oburu Odinga was nominated to parliament by ODM. Of course, people argued and it was a lot of uproar that Oburu Odinga was given the position that belonged to youth. That is where he draws his nickname, the youth leader, because the argument is that the position to which he was nominated belonged to ODM youth. So that is 2013 and 2017. He was a nominated member of parliament, after which Oburu Odinga went back to Siaya to try his luck to be the governor for Siaya. Those of you who followed that in 2017, it was one of the most chaotic nominations where Oduol, the current deputy governor for Siaya, and Oburu went head to head. And of course, Raila Odinga and the ODM party ended up with a compromise, who was Rasanga. So Oburu Odinga did not get that seat of the governor, and ODM ensured that Oburu Odinga was appointed to serve Kenyans at Yala, the East African Parliament. That is where he served between 2017 and 2022. Of course, in 2022, Oburu Odinga went back to Siaya. Now that Orengo was going for governor, Oburu Odinga went back to Siaya. I don't even think whether he campaigned to be the senator. It is as if Oburu Odinga was elected senator without even campaigning. So currently, Oburu Odinga is serving as the senator for Siaya. That, ladies and gentlemen, is Oburu Odinga's political history. So I have shared about his age. We've talked about his education. We've looked at the work experience or job experience, and of course, his political history. Like I said, I was not just giving you this for the sake of it. It was to lay the foundation upon which I am going to share with you why I believe Oburu Odinga makes the best leader for ODM, considering everything. You see, I shared that even though his father and the likes of Raila Odinga were really anti-Moi government, Oburu Odinga still found a way of working with that particular government. So Oburu Odinga's approach to politics or to disagreement has always been diplomacy. During the funeral of the late Dalmas Otieno, when speaking and of course representing Raila at that funeral, Oburu Odinga said something that was very important, and this plays into his leadership ability or his ability to negotiate. Oburu Odinga said that then Dalmas Otieno was a minister for industrialization. He was the one in charge of industry. And of course, the Jaramogi family business wanted some kind of licensing. And they were not going to get this considering the bad blood between Jaramogi and Moi. But then Oburu Odinga approached the Almas Otieno, and then he persuaded them to help them with this particular issue of getting the license. And Dalmas referred him somewhere, and the decision was that Jaramogi had to give certain public pronouncement that he had nothing against Moi. And when he did that, also came with the benefit of getting Raila Odinga out of detention. So you see, is someone who is so much into diplomacy. And anytime Raila Odinga wanted to make a move that was not popular with his masses, or a move that was not what people expected he would do, the first person he would send to do an interview, and most of the time this interview was done with the Standard Group. I don't know why, but that is how Oburu Odinga has done his very influential interviews, where he would be sharing the position or the next direction. Whether it was when they were supposed to join Uhuru Kenyatta, Oburu went and did an interview with Standard Media. Whether it was about them joining the broad-based government, Oburu Odinga did that and explained. Most of the time he is very articulate. In terms of looking at the bigger picture, I can say here without fear of contradiction that Oburu is experienced enough to do that, because I've just given you a story of how he managed to get his brother out of detention by just diplomacy. No going to the streets, no doing anything. And I am 100% persuaded that Oburu Odinga is the reason why Raila Odinga agreed to work with William Ruto. And this is why I say so. Those of you who have studied Raila Odinga, you know, with all due respect to the late Prime Minister, he kinda loved populist politics. And by populist politics, Raila Odinga kinda did not want to hurt the audience. He didn't want to hurt his followers. So at times, instead of being the leader, he would prefer to do what the masses wanted. I'd give you an example. When the so-called Gen Zs went to the streets around June of 2024, Raila Odinga issued a statement. In that statement, he was fully supporting the Gen Zs, so-called. And he told them they have taken over and they're doing a wonderful thing. But then you see, that is not what he would be pursuing, because after that, Raila Odinga said something that was different from someone who was endorsing the Gen Z anarchy. What he said is that he wasn't for the anarchy. But you see, just a few, maybe hours ago, he had given a statement that plainly stated that he was fully behind the Gen Z's anarchy, or as they were calling it, revolution. Ladies and gentlemen, the person who has been consistent throughout on the issue of working with William Ruto is none other than Oburu Odinga. It means that when Oburu Odinga gives you his word, then you don't sit somewhere and doubt whether he would see it through. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the kind of leader you need in the current political dispensation we have. What has ailed Kenya, in my opinion, apart from a myriad of challenges that we face, is that we have dishonest leaders. And it has been made so normal that when somebody lies to you, people would rationalize it with cliches like politics is a dirty game. There are no permanent enemies. Siasa siyo kanisa. Politics is not a church. That is the culture we've developed, where promises made, agreements made, do not have value. You can shortchange people at will and get away with it. And that is what is bringing a lot of mistrust. And in some cases, it has seen this country plunging into chaos. So you need a leader who can sit and or assess situation, look at the pros and cons, make a decision, and stick by it. Oburu Odinga, even when Raila Odinga would give very conflicting statements about their working relationship with William Ruto, Oburu Odinga has been consistent that they are working with William Ruto in the Broadwest government. Now, there are people who have never liked that because, in politics, there are those who were not for Raila Odinga or ODM working with William Ruto. And so when they had things that could sound like conflicting, they would be very happy. But Oburu Odinga has been very consistent. Even when Raila Odinga would say something different, Oburu Odinga would make it categorically clear. I want to give you an example. James Orengo takes to the podium during the burial of one Oduor, the late bodyguard of Raila Odinga, and lectures William Ruto. William Ruto was in attendance, and lectures anybody who was working with William Ruto. James Orengo is cheered by the crowd. Oburu Odinga didn't spare him. Oburu Odinga took it personal and took Orengo head on. He would tell Orengo off. He would ask him, what is this human right that you are fighting for? Yet you are a governor with resources who is supposed to develop an area. Are you still supposed to be an activist, or are you supposed to implement things? Oburu Odinga, if you can remember, took Orengo head on until Orengo submitted. On the other hand, Raila Odinga would be seen to be defending the position of Orengo under the guise of they have a democratic right. And this is where it was getting funny. You see, when Jalango, Nyamita, Gideon Ochanda, Tom Ojenda, and others went to meet William Ruto at State House without the permission of Raila Odinga, what do you think happened? Did Raila Odinga come out to defend them and say that that is the democracy we have in ODM? No. They met and expelled them from the party. What actually helped the likes of Jalango is that they were with the state. And so most of the things would not go through. They were saved by the state. But the decision of ODM led by Raila Odinga then was that they go away. That is not the same way he treated the likes of Sifuna and Orengo for speaking differently. What I was telling you, ladies and gentlemen, is that when it comes to consistent leadership, then Oburu Odinga towers above all. In my opinion, that is very important. You need a leader on whose words you can rely. Somebody that you know perfectly well that whatever it is that Oburu promises me, he will stand by it. So one thing that makes Oburu Odinga fit to lead ODM is that he is reliable. Oburu Odinga is extremely reliable and consistent. I must add that. He is very consistent. Whatever he tells you, just know Oburu Odinga will stick with it. 2, what sets Oburu Odinga apart is his ability to negotiate, meaning he prefers diplomacy. Giving his interview on Ramogi TV yesterday night, Oburu Odinga said, when addressing the young people who are feeling like the best way to get rid of a government they didn't like is to be on the streets and marching. He said no. In fact, if you want the most successful way to get rid of a president you don't like, register as voters, and then you can form a party of your own, or you can join us in ODM. But going to the streets and causing chaos, that is not something you might find Oburu Odinga encouraging. And all along, even when Raila Odinga has been on the street, you've never seen Oburu Odinga with him. based on the history I shared with you, he believes that there are so many ways of getting what you want without necessarily causing a lot of pain to other people. So Oburu Odinga, instead of taking loose to the street to maybe throw stones and be killed in the process, he would just call or go to the person that he knows is in a position to deliver what they want and sit down with that person and talk. It is said that most of the negotiations, the shuttle diplomacy, that most of the negotiations, the underground diplomacy that has gone into making Raila Odinga have deals with opponents has been done by none other than Oburu Odinga. It is said that it is Oburu Odinga who would try and talk to Kibaki when there were a lot of conflict between Kibaki and Raila Odinga. He is the one who would really talk to the likes of Uhuru during their handshake. And of course, you've seen for yourself, he is very close to William Ruto and has been talking to him and negotiating. And even during that yesterday night interview, Oburu Odinga explained that they will negotiate for things for the people of Luo Nyanza. Now that they are in broad-based government, they will negotiate for the developments that they want in the region. For him, diplomacy is everything. No need for chaos, no need for fight. Diplomacy is everything. You get the results without unnecessary effort. So that second thing makes Oburu Odinga fit to lead ODM. I'm telling you, Oburu Odinga is a diplomat par excellence. It is his diplomacy that got his brother out of jail. And remember, even though there was a lot of chaos between Jaramogis and the Mois, Oburu Odinga was still serving as a public servant, not fired, because not that he knows how to sell out, but he knows what is important and how to bargain for the family. And that is why, even in their family, Raila Odinga still respected Oburu Odinga as the spokesperson of that family and as the leader of the family. Why? Because Oburu Odinga is diplomatic, and of course, like I told you, he is very reliable. Just still on the point of diplomacy, when asked how to deal with Sifuna and Babu Owino, Oburu Odinga was very surprising. Other people would have beaten around the bush. In fact, let me say, Raila Odinga would have said there is no problem in the party, that these young people are just exercising their right and they should be left alone. Yet, people would be seeing rifts within the party. So how did Oburu Odinga approach this? In his diplomatic spirit, Oburu Odinga first of all admitted their challenges. To quote him, he said that Sifuna is a young man that at times he goes overboard because he's still young and his blood is running high, just to quote him, and he might go overboard. But instead of kicking him out of the party, when he does a mistake, we just correct him within the party. He used the word that we just cane him, but within the party. He even said he sat down with Sifuna and he spoke with him so that they don't have a case where officials of the party are giving contradicting positions to that of the party, or even committing the party to things that they have not officially agreed to. You know, Sifuna has been saying, I don't know the mongrel called broad-based government. As far as I'm concerned, ODM is not working with Ruto in any way. So these are contradicting statements to the official position of the party. So what did he do? He said he sat down with Sifuna. They talked. He understood his anger issues that he was raising. And then Sifuna said, okay, I understand you. I don't have problems. And that is why he was saying, that is why you saw Sifuna reading the statements, even though he had swore that he will not be reading the statement. Oburu Odinga went the diplomatic route. Instead of just saying, Sifuna, out, we don't want you here, he sat down with him and talked to him. What about Babu Owino? He was asked about that still. And he was saying, I have heard Babu Owino has challenges. And I've heard that he has some fears and some concerns here and there. But I want to tell him he cannot solve them outside the party. He should not run away from the party. He should come back and then we will talk. In fact, I am currently looking for Babu. I have sent emissaries to Babu Owino so that we sit down and I hear what his challenges are. That kind of leadership. First of all, you admit there's problem. You don't brush it off and pretend there is no problem when people are seeing challenges. That is how a leader is. You first of all agree, these are the challenges we have, but then let us find solutions within the frameworks of the party, as opposed to making noise out there or the party kicking you out. That, ladies and gentlemen, is part of the diplomacy that sets Oburu Odinga apart. So 2 things so far. Oburu Odinga is extremely consistent. That is, he's very reliable. He gives you his word, you can take it to the bank. Those who have dealt with him politically know that. Those who have dealt with him in terms of business know that. He is reliable. And then, 2, I have shared with you that Oburu Odinga prefers diplomacy as a way of resolving conflicts as opposed to unnecessary violence or unnecessary dramas. And that, in my opinion, ladies and gentlemen, is what ODM needs moving forward, because the interests within the party are so diverse, and you will just need a leader who can listen to everyone and then come up with a solution, so that when it reaches a point that they cannot sustain somebody within the party, it would be after they had really tried. The third thing, ladies and gentlemen, that makes Oburu Odinga qualified to lead the party, in my opinion, is what I would call experience. Or should we say stroke wisdom? You see, Oburu Odinga is not young, like I said. So he's not over-ambitious. There is no record of Oburu Odinga showing interest in vying for the presidency of the country. That removes the burden Raila Odinga had from him. Because you see, for Raila Odinga, he was also ambitious to be the president. And with that, the challenges are enormous, because there are people who are whispering to you here and there, and they are saying things in respect to your candidature. So some people will make you make some decisions that might cost you later, but then in the meantime, you would be feeling like these are the decisions that I need to make to be president. For Oburu Odinga, he doesn't have such burden. So he is a relaxed person. But then remember, I told you, he is both been in public service. He knows how the government works. He knows how the government operates. So he knows what he can push through government and what the government will do or won't do. But also he's been in politics for a very long time. Both won elections, lost elections, be part of controversy, and etc. So he knows what it is that you need to do for this and what it is that you need to do when the situation arises. That, ladies and gentlemen, is experience that you may not say other leaders in that party have. Because apart from the fact that he comes from the Odinga's family, which is a wonderful thing for him, because the Luos still, like I told you, believe in the Odingas. Ever since independence, Luos have only been led by the Odingas, and Oburu Odinga is not an outsider. He is part of the Odingas, one of the most respected Odingas there, because Raila Odinga himself respected him. So he is both consistent and reliable. Oburu Odinga is a diplomat. He likes to resolve things in the best way possible. And of course, he has the experience you need to run a country and of course lead a community. And I'm not making this up, ladies and gentlemen. Those of you who understand Luo, you can visit Ramogi TV and watch the interview Oburu Odinga had with Trevor Mbija, and then see the comments from Luos there. They were all agreeing that this is a wise man and this is what the party or the Luo nation needs. Even on controversial issues like who is supposed to be the kingpin, he was categorical that his age, the age of Raila, those old people are not going to be the best leaders. That ODM or Luos have leaders who have been built for a long time, and any of them can take over. It's just a matter of Luos one day coming behind somebody, because it's not an elective post. You cannot campaign for it. He was saying that if Luos accept you, they will accept you. Nobody is ever elected a Luo kingpin. And I add here that what sets a Luo kingpin apart is his ability to bargain for the community. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope I prosecuted the case and shared why I think Oburu Odinga is fit to lead ODM, and of course, by extension, the Luo nation moving forward. Just as a recap, ladies and gentlemen, here is why I believe Oburu Odinga is fit to lead ODM party and even Luo nation for that matter. First, Oburu is very reliable. Whatever he promises you, he would keep that promise. If Oburu Odinga gives you his word, you can take it to the bank. While other people have been jumping up and down on issues of whether they are working with Ruto in broad-based government, Oburu Odinga has categorically stated that we are working with Ruto. We agreed to work with Ruto. It doesn't matter what other people have been saying. Oburu Odinga has maintained that position. So he's reliable. When he says something, you can take it to the bank. 2, Oburu Odinga is a diplomat. He likes to solve complex problems through diplomacy, not through unnecessary force and violence. You see, through that diplomacy, he got his brother out of prison. He was managing to work in government, and you see how he has handled the family, even differences in ODM, since he took over barely a week ago. And thirdly, Oburu Odinga is experienced. He is both a civil servant and he's been in politics for years. He's both won elections, lost elections. He knows what controversy is, so he knows what to do. Ladies and gentlemen, that is what I wanted to share with you. If you found value in this video, let me know in the comment section below. And of course, if you are yet to subscribe to the channel, subscribe so that you are notified whenever we produce videos of this nature. Don't forget to like this particular video and share it with your friends. Otherwise, in case you want to know how Oburu Odinga negotiated for the release of Raila Odinga from detention, watch this video.